Hey, so let's start the discussion of next loop of C++, which is while loop. Now, before telling you about while loop, before discussing about while loop, let me tell you one very simple and very interesting fact about the loops. So it doesn't matter which loop it is, doesn't matter whether it is a for loop, while loop or do while loop, all the loops are going to do the same task, doing some repetitive work for the programmer, okay? It's the syntax which is going to be different for different types of loop, okay? So for loop is also going to do some repetitive task, okay? It is going to execute for loop body till the condition becomes false. Similarly, even the while loop and do while loop is also going to do the same thing. It is also going to execute the while body or do while loops body till the condition becomes false, okay? It's the syntax which is going to be different for while loop, do while loop and for loop. Now in this video we'll understand how the syntax of while loop is different than syntax of for loop, which we have already seen. So let's start with syntax of while loop. See, the syntax is very simpler. For while loop it is very simple, even simpler than for loop, okay? So you have to write while keyword followed by opening and closing parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you will need to write the test condition. Okay, so this is basically header of the while loop. While keyword in parentheses you need to write test condition. You can see inside the header we are not writing initialization and updation expression, okay? I'm going to tell you where we are going to actually write initialization and updation expression in case of while loop, but just remember, as per the syntax, you don't need to write the initialization and updation expression inside the while loop header, okay? And after that you will write the while loop body. Now let's understand how the while loop is going to execute, okay? The flow chart, okay? So basically we are going to check the test condition. If it is true, then body of the while loop will be executed. If it is false, then the while loop terminates, okay? So till the point your test condition results into a truthy value, the while loop body will keep on executing, and when your test condition results into false value, the while loop will terminate, okay? Now let's see one small code snippet which I have written with the help of while loop. See, what I have done is I have taken one variable with name a and I have initialized it to 0, okay? Now this is my while loop header, so I am writing while keyword followed by condition, test condition. So my test condition is a less than 5, okay? And then inside the while loop body, this is my while loop body. So inside the while loop body, what I'm doing is I'm just printing value of a on the screen, and after that I'm also incrementing a by 1, okay? So I'm writing a plus plus, or I can also write a is equal to a plus 1 or a plus equal to 1, okay? So this is my while loop body. Now if you see this code very carefully and if you try to execute this code in your mind, like how the code is going to execute, you will be able to guess that this code works very similar to the code which we have written previously with the help of for loop, okay? So if I run this code, let me compile this code quickly and then let's execute this. You can see it is also printing a is 0, a is 1, so on till a is 4. And if you remember the previous video, then in the previous video also, with the help of for loop we were doing the same thing, okay? Now let's observe the syntax very carefully once again. See, the syntax is little bit different in case of while loop. See, in case of while loop we are putting the initialization before while loop. In case of for loop we put it inside for loop in the header of the for loop. In case of while loop we put it before the while loop, okay? And if you observe carefully, the updation statement is written inside the while loop body, okay? So basically as a programmer you need to take care of initialization and the updation. The initialization will go before the while loop and the updation will usually go inside the body of the while loop, okay? So I hope now you are very clear with syntax of while loop. See, whether to use for loop or while loop depends on the scenario actually, okay? So in upcoming videos when I'll be taking some code exercises, in that I'll explain you when to use which loop, okay? When to use for loop and when to use while loop. But you can see for loop and while loop are very similar, okay? The only difference that they have is the syntax. In case of for loop, you write initialization, condition and updation in header of the for loop. In case of while loop, you write initialization separately, then you write test condition in while loop header, and then you write updation usually at the end of while loop body. So in this way you write or you structure your while loops code. Okay, now let me tell you a few interesting things about the syntax of while loop. See, in syntax of while loop, this test condition is compulsory. You cannot skip it. Okay, so you cannot write something like this will generate an error. Okay, you can see if I don't write the test condition, you can see it is saying expected an expression. Okay, so this test condition is mandatory. You can also make this while loop as infinite loop by doing something like this, while true. If you write while true, then this test condition will always remain true, and then this will be an infinite while loop. Okay, so I'll just show you. I'll compile this code and execute this. You can see this code is infinitely running. I'll press Ctrl C to stop this. This is an infinite while loop. You can also write something like this to make it as infinite loop. So if I write while 1, then even 1 is a truthy value. So even this will be an infinite loop. So if I compile and execute this code, you can see it is running infinitely. So this is another example of infinite while loop. What will happen if I write something like this, while 0? See, 0 is basically false. So in the first iteration itself, the test condition is false. So we will never execute body of the while loop, and will never go inside body of the while loop. It will never execute. Okay, because the test condition is false. So loop will immediately terminate. Okay, so I hope you are clear with while loop in C++.